Right, let's just have a play with this amazing tool, Google Books Ngram Viewer. And quite simply, what it does is it scans every book that exists online for the vocabulary that you put in and will compare it for you. So let's imagine I want to see if Shakespeare or Dickens is more influential as a writer over time. Look what I can see. Dickens becomes quite influential in his lifetime and then more so afterwards. But interest in him seems to drop off. He becomes a less popular writer. But look at what happens with Shakespeare at the same time. Huge interest in him, and although it's dropped off, it begins to pick up again. So we can also infer from that interest in classical literature has waned a bit since a peak in the 1930s, which is quite interesting, isn't it? It declines dramatically towards the Second World War, where people presumably are turning away from the plays and reading more novels. I don't know. It makes you ask lots of questions, doesn't it? So here's another one. Is society becoming more optimistic or less optimistic? I've put hope and despair in, hoping that they're opposites. Let's see what happens. So I just click on search lots of books. And what's Google going to say? Here it comes. Interesting. Although the level of despair has dropped slightly, we've had a significant drop in hope until the millennium. After the year 2000, we experience an increase in hope that's greater than our increase in despair. Interesting, isn't it? So terrorism and war seems to be on our minds all the time, but actually hope is increasing. Fascinating. Now, of course, that's not scientific. That's just looking at the numbers of references in books. But actually, this is the kind of big data that's quite a lot of fun. So here's another one, democracy and dictatorship. Let's see what happens. So the interest in democracy blossoms round about the year 1900. We can see it increasing dramatically here, but it takes a dip. Here, this would be 1929 in the recession, look, 1930. And after the Wall Street crash and the Great Depression, interest in dictatorship increases. Fascinating, isn't it? But perhaps in response to the increased number of dictatorships, interest in democracy then peaks. And look at that. That's the end of the Second World War. That's when we were most obsessed with democracy because we're attacking dictators. And look what's happened in the post-war years. As we become richer, we become less and less interested in democracy. Fascinating. Till we get to 1981 and 1982. I don't know what's happening in the world then, but after that we become increasingly interested in the idea of democracy. Fascinating, isn't it? Really worth a play just to understand history a bit better, or the books that you're looking at. Here's a final one that's got lots of topicality for students and teachers. Are we becoming more obsessed with exams and losing sight of education? Well, no. This would suggest, although we're becoming more concerned with exams, it hardly registers, does it? There's very little traffic on exams, but much more interest in education. Although the interest in education has declined since about 1974. I wonder why. Okay, I lied. I just had to have another go. What does society value more, a writer or a doctor? Look at the early 1800s when doctors weren't so good at saving lives. The writer was held in highest respect. And so that's peaked round about 1930. Let's say, there you go, 1927. And after that, the importance of the writer has faded and the importance of the doctor has increased. So we could infer from that that we're more concerned now with our physical well-being rather than our mental well-being. We're more concerned with the years that we live rather than the life that we put into our years. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? I'm an English teacher. But when I put in teacher and lawyer to have a look and see whether our society is more about helping others or helping yourself, it's quite interesting, actually. We've become a much more inclusive society that values the opening of your mind that education can bring. And so a teacher's job seems to be one that is favoured more frequently than being a lawyer. And it's very easy as a teacher seeing loads of articles in the press about teaching, which makes teaching seem quite a negative profession. Actually, on more reflection, teaching comes out really well, much better than being a lawyer. It obviously sparks people's imagination a lot more. And it would also appear that being a teacher holds more interest to the public consciousness than being a doctor. Just a shame that the pay isn't different. Wouldn't it be great if teachers were paid as much as doctors were paid as much as teachers? You'd go to your doctor having researched your condition on the internet and say, "Doctor, I've diagnosed what my condition is. Can you check my work, please?" And the doctor would mark it for you and say, "Yes, you're absolutely right. Here's some penicillin." And you go to your teacher and say, "Teacher, I want to get a degree, but I don't know how to do it. Can you show me how to educate myself so that I can go to university?" And the teacher would say, "Yes, I'm going to show you exactly how to become a brilliant student." Wouldn't that be marvellous if schools did that and tried to get everyone into university? Anyway, enough ramblings from me. You can see how much fun I've had with the Google Books Ngram Viewer. Why not try it for yourself? And then post any really interesting results on the channel down below.